Welcome everyone to another edition of the Open Book Open Mind Challenge. As you know, on this program, we try to promote literacy, we try to promote education, but we also want to motivate our readers and our followers and our listeners to the things that we find interesting and consider that this type of knowledge that we gain, we'd love to pass it on and share our stories with you. Tonight is no different. We have a special guest, a good friend of mine, and my man Fritz Charles is hailing to you from Baruch College with a bachelor's in business and finance. He is also an MBA, a fellow MBA student, graduate, as as he studied in Wharton, and he studied entrepreneurship. He's also the founder of an actual company that you guys may be familiar with in the actual science or the study or the trade of Bitcoins, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I wanted to invite him to this program to kind of share his knowledge on all those things finance, all those things business, entrepreneurship, and even tech as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to help me welcome my good friend, Mr. Fritz Charles.
Awesome.
All
David, thanks
right,
for having me, man.
my brother. It's been a minute
Way too
and
long.
way too long, but the best part of it is the things that I've seen you doing in the time that we've spoken last has always been amazing. You've been making strides in your industry and
Thank you.
educating people in your platform. I know you use your stage to help enlighten and inform people about technology and finance, especially, which go hand in hand, and those are my favorite subjects. So
Awesome.
welcome to the
Awesome. Appreciate
program.
that. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So tonight you'll be taking on the Open Book Open Mind Challenge. Are
Okay.
you ready today?
I'm ready.
Are you ready today?
I am ready.
You are ready, and I can tell you got the Knicks colors on. You got the New York
Yes. I don't
repping
know if
NY.
that probably means I'm not ready because the Knicks
Well, look what
they
I've got. We match it, right? So
exactly.
pretty much.
Man, the last time the Knicks been ready, we probably were in high school. We probably were connecting in person right
Bro.
now.
So what you been up to, bro? It's been a minute, like you said. What you been up to?
Man, it has been a minute, man. I've been through a lot, man. As far as like been doing a lot of different iterations in my career and ventures and things of that sort. As I was telling you, like my first career was in finance. I worked at Lehman Brothers, the historic Lehman Brothers. Uh, so I went through that whole financial crisis. I was there when it went bankrupt. Joined Barclays, and I went to school at Wharton and switched over to technology. Kind of fell in love with. This is like the time when, obviously at that time, Facebook was around for a little bit, but Facebook went public at that time. So like that's when like tech was really growing. And for me, I always looked at entrepreneurship as a great ticket, and technology is a great way to exercise entrepreneurship. So kind of transitioned to technology, and I've been working on at tech startups ever since. And along the way, kind of discovered cryptocurrency, and being like a finance dude that was now working in tech, it was like a perfect combination. And in particular, what really interests me about cryptocurrency, both you and I, we have familial backgrounds in Haiti,
Hmm.
and if you grow up in a Haitian community or any immigrant community, you know how it is to kind of support family members back home and have pay Western Union like 20%.
Yeah.
And this was an interesting technology because you could send money between any anybody across borders without paying a crazy fee. So that kind of was that was actually the use case that really got me into it. Then I discovered the trading. Then I discovered the blockchain, and I've been kind of digging in ever since. And so right now I work with technology startups, but also I run Coin Gamma, which is my cryptocurrency education and content platform. So we have a website, we have a app, we put content on Instagram and Twitter, and we have a podcast where we just kind of interview people in the space, talk about different concepts, and and have fun with it.
And that's where I picked up on you because always known you as a smart individual. You was always the brother that used his head, and wherever we used to do crazy things back in the day, you kind of look at us like, I don't know about that one. So I always knew
Yeah,
you had.
you're being kind, man. You're being kind. I appreciate that.
I mean, but no, you and I, we go so far back as those days when we didn't have it all together and we didn't know how
Right.
much impact we could have produced and all the great things that we could offer to our communities,
Of course.
and to seeing that come around full circle and what you've done and the places you've been and the way that you're giving back, it makes me so proud, brother. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I'm so fascinated by that world that you presented to us, because not a lot of people that I know are into Bitcoin, crypto. And can you
Right.
break it down to the way that you do it, and so eloquently and
Right.
easily, putting that kind of information in our laps, or in our palms, on our
Yeah,
phones,
appreciate
on our
that.
on your sites. So I was very happy to know that you continued on that path. And as a business major myself, I had, the background in business and marketing, and then I did my MBA. And
Congratulations.
yes, brother, I appreciate it. Like, but the knowledge that you gain, the things that you learn, and all the schooling that you go through, it has to be something more than just, just for the career sake of trying to find a job. But what if you're not giving back, if you're not learning, if you're not putting people on, then it's
Right.
kind
What's
of
the
like,
point?
what are you doing it for? You know what I mean?
Of course.
And
Of
you're
course.
doing that, and I salute you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like what you said with finding the cryptocurrency and the easy way to transfer funds internationally. How did you figure that out? Like, I know we all heard the word crypto. We heard, I thought it was something like, I thought it was other things about crypts and all that. But I mean, coming from where we come from, I'm like, what is
Of
that?
course.
Like, is it something? Is it something like sketchy? Is it something like, what I mean? Just in jest. But in all honesty, not a lot of people know and understand what that means, and blockchain and all those things. I used to hear you say on your podcast.
Right. Right.
How did you figure that out? Like, who taught you? How did you figure it out?
Well, I no. Well, I guess I'll answer the second question first. Like nobody taught me. Just because it's kind of like a cryptocurrency is kind of like a self-starter community. It's kind of something where you discover it, and either you're a curious person or not, or either it's something that piques your curiosity or not. And if it does, you just kind of dig in. Um, it's really just me, hearing about it anecdotally through just kind of like so. I read a lot. I probably read too much, but I read a lot of like online blogs and different message boards and things of that sort. That's kind of how I discovered it. And then so I started reading more and more articles about it, and just kind of like spent more and more time. And so like on my social media, my Twitter, I started following journalists that cover it, some of the leaders in the space, and then that
Right.
kind of just snowballed, right? They call it the crypto rabbit hole, because once you get into it, you could you could spend hours upon hours digging into it. And
Huh.
so that's kind of how I started. And it still in the beginning it wasn't immediately easy to understand, but once I got into it a little bit more, started digging into technology a little bit, it became clear to me. So
I'm sure that once it started cashing in as well, it was very fruitful for you, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it obviously, yeah. Looking back, I wish I had purchased more. I was a little bit hesitant too. But obviously, you don't need to be into crypto to know that it went up and now it's back down and now it's going back up. So it's one of those things where it's highly volatile.
Mm.
And there were people that were really up, then they're back down right now. And so I think the people that are still engaged in it, they look at it long term. They look at the technology, and yeah, you may end up making money from it,
Yeah.
but you can't control that timeline, right? So
Right.
I think you have to be in it for other reasons as well.
So thanks for putting me on with that. So for someone who's trying to, let's say, invest and don't know what to do or how to do it, what would be the difference in investing in cryptocurrency versus in a, let's say, a stock market or something?
Yeah, so those are pretty different. So if you invest in a stock, you basically have ownership rights to the company, right?
Right,
You may have
right,
very
right.
tiny ownership, but you have ownership to the company. So if I buy Google stock or I buy Zoom stock, which we're using right now, Zoom stock has been
Pretty
hot
much. Shout out to
all year.
Zoom. Zoom
Yeah,
Unique
so
sponsorship. Let us know what's going on, because
exactly.
that's what it
If you
is.
if you buy that, you basically have a percentage of ownership of the company, and
Right.
that gives you rights to if they issue dividends, and there's future appreciation. Um, Whereas in Bitcoin and crypto, and I'll just say Bitcoin, Bitcoin is just kind of like this digital currency, right? It's what, so when I say digital currency, it's like this money that lives on the internet. That's it, and it's owned by nobody. Like nobody controls it. It just kind of it has a limited supply, right?
Right.
It's similar to gold,
Oh,
but
it's
gold was all
limited.
digital. It's
So
limited, yeah.
so if nobody owns it, right? Is it like when a company says I'm giving out this certain amount of stake in the company, or is it just like this is all that exists in the world ever?
Well, so here's the thing. Yes, that's the latter. So what happens is companies issue stock, but they could issue stock again, right? Which dilutes the previous people. What happens with Bitcoin, it's maxed at 21 million uh, units.
Gotcha.
So,
So it's very rare.
right. And the distribution of it is code based. So
Right.
it's not a person. So nobody could manipulate it. So Bitcoin is just code that went out, right? And code, Zoom is built by code. Everything is built. Everything on the
Absolutely.
internet lives by code, but code is really just a set of instructions. That's really what code is, right?
That's it. It doesn't
And so,
discriminate. It doesn't have any preferences.
exactly right. And so, how Bitcoin was created, it was basically like this set code that lived on a ledger. A ledger is almost like a spreadsheet, but it's a
Yep.
spreadsheet. That's the blockchain. So it's a spreadsheet that everybody could see, everybody could control, right? And then basically there are rules on how it's distributed, how that $21 million is distributed, and it's distributed either by it's basically distributed by mining, right? So these are people that are they basically validate the transactions that happen on the blockchain, right? So the blockchain have a list of transactions. You can validate it, and then you could get a percentage transaction fee. But what happens is those people could take the bitcoins that they earned and put it on exchange. So that's where the movement happens. So it's people to people.
Got it. I'm
You
getting
know,
it.
no, I feel like I went fast. I'm happy to dig into any part of that.
I think I no. So when the people secure a certain amount of the limited supply, they control how much now the currency is worth.
So they
No.
not exactly. So the market does, but all
Ah,
that really means is that they they control how much it's worth by putting basically saying, hey, I'm open to selling it, but it's all about what people want to buy, right? So if
got it.
people feel like there's demand, that's all it is. So I guess let's take a step back. So everybody asks like, well, why does Bitcoin have value? Um, but what I would say is, why does the dollar have value, right? Because people say it has value, right? Why do the Jordan 3s have value, right?
Right.
Versus the Patrick Ewing 2s, right? It's just that people said that the Jordan 3s are valuable, right? And so it really it's that simple and that basic. All you need is more. If there are more people that believe that it's valuable than not valuable, the price is gonna go up. That's supply and demand, right?
So yeah.
So and so that's really it. So people have earned Bitcoin and they have put it up for sale, and over time, more people more people have thought to purchase it than the people that want to sell it, and that's what's pushed it up. That's really it. So it's like, all right, first person said I'll settle for $1. You had more than one person want to buy it for $1, so it moved up to $2, and it moved to $3, moved up to $4, and that's it,
All right.
right?
Simplistically, this sounds like it sounds like the eBay version of selling money.
Yes, boom, there it is. There it is.
Dang.
It's peer to peer transactions.
Oh, dang. Why not ever think what see this is why we needed to have this because if I knew
No,
that
no, but you know what? You crystallized it even better than I did it because I feel like I should, even though I have a podcast, even though I write about it, I feel like speaking to different people make me allow me to kind of crystallize it a lot easier. And so us going back and forth like that, you just gave me a great metaphor to use when I explain to somebody else. So I have to thank you for
Nah,
that.
brother, I thank you. We this is what this exchange is about. This is what it's about.
Yeah.
So, when you're not buying, do you buy and sell still? Is that how you trade? And
Well, I haven't because it's been so volatile. I haven't sold probably for over a year or so, and I haven't bought anything additional. So I've kind of just been chilling. I've been watching the space because so here's another thing that makes it even more complicated. There are like over 2,000 cryptocurrencies out there.
that's what my next question was gonna be. Like, how, if it's so limited and it's so valuable based on opinion or demand, I would say both, and supply maybe. But how do people pop up with their new type of
So here, so if
brands?
you remember, I told you the way that it was created is by code. So all you could do is codes, take that code, copy it, and just say, "Yo, I got David coin." Just
Gotcha.
right. You can't say that you're that Bitcoin, but you could switch something up and say, "I got David coin," and then boom, here it is.
So you're
Right.
basically selling your own stockpile with your code on it.
Basically.
Oh,
Exactly.
snap. So if you
Exactly.
buy enough of it, because if I buy one Bitcoin, I guess, or one little buck or whatever it's called,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
What's it called?
No, one unit of Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
buy one unit of Bitcoin and make an ever after coin, uh, it
Wait,
won't
wait. So,
matter.
so you don't need to buy a Bitcoin to make your ever after coin. You can look at the Bitcoin code and just basically switch some stuff up and make an ever after coin based on Bitcoin's infrastructure. So, like,
But but it
if I
won't
was,
be
mhm.
sorry, it won't be worth anything unless I have enough of it that matters to people.
Well, that goes into your marketing. Like your ever after coin has to be it has to be useful for something, right? So if nobody wants to accept it, um, then it doesn't mean anything. But maybe maybe you do something where you trade books for
Hey,
ever after
wait.
coin.
Let's take this offline. Let's do this. I like where you go with this. Let's do this offline.
Yeah, let's do it. Of Zoom.
Wait, let's. No. But I see. I like where we come with this. I like where this is going, bro.
For sure.
I get it though. But so okay, so with your example, as before I interrupted with my own,
No, your example was perfect, man. Like eBay
okay.
is a great thing. So that's why I kind of went to the sneaker thing. Like, why is silver, worth less than gold, right? It's just that people decide that yellow color looks better than that dull, more silver, silver gray looking color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it's based on perception. Why is a dollar worth more than the Mexican peso? Is just that people have more faith in the USD versus the US economy versus the Mexican economy, right?
Yeah.
And so and so it goes back to the question: why do people believe in this imaginary money? And I'm using parallels to like the government. It's just that it's imaginary money, but people believe in digital stuff, man. If you look, there's a lot of things that are digital that people believe, right? So
Absolutely.
people pay for like tokens that are in video games.
Yeah.
People
Oh,
pay
my
for
kids
like
on their what's that called?
Fortnite.
Fortnite. Oh,
Exactly. So that's another parallel. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, the question is like, all right, is Bitcoin worth anything, and will it be worth anything? All you need is more people to think it's worth something than don't think it, and that's going to push the price up. That's it. Because
that's
if
it.
if I have one thing and two people want to buy it, I have to just move up the price,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's it. That's supply and demand, and so that's kind of how it works. And the strength of it is going to be the places that accept it, the people that accept it. Right now, there hasn't been that many places that have accepted it just yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so the value has been just kind of like people taking it, holding it, and saying like, all right, well, it's going to be worth more in the future. So I just want to get as much as I can and hold it.
So my last question on crypto, because I'm learning so much, bro. I appreciate that. Um, what made it go down? Like what made crypto not as appealing as it did when it first popped? Is that a simple question?
No. It's a great question actually. So I think you're talking about 2017. It went from like I think 3,000 to like um 20,000. Like that whole like fourth quarter of the year with like that whole Thanksgiving time period. Everybody was going crazy over crypto and blockchain and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then 2018, you just saw that thing nosedive.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that happened. I think it got too hot too quick. That's one. I think what happened was Wall Street started getting in the game,
Yeah.
and they introduced this tool called Bitcoin futures, which is basically like a financial contract that's connected to Bitcoin. And once they announced that, people started betting against it. And again, like I told you, if you have if you have something and more people want to buy it, you just move up the price to meet up that demand, right?
Right.
Until nobody's willing to pay that price. And then the opposite happens. If more people say, yo, this is way too overpriced, I'm gonna just push it down. And so that's kind of what happened. And then also a lot of that movement was just speculative. People thought that, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to use Bitcoin to pay my rent. I'm gonna be able to use Bitcoin to like, buy coffee, whatever. And that
Gotcha.
wasn't coming to fruition. Like
Gotcha. Yeah.
because especially in the U.S., the financial infrastructure is for old school currencies, not these new crazy digital things, right?
Yep.
And so I think those two things kind of caused it to crash. And then and also what happens, a lot of people that got into it were not people that have experience investing. So once they saw some of that happen, they were running for the exits, and so everything, like just like what you see what's going on in the market right now because of COVID. If people are running for the exits, those prices are going to just tank. So
Yeah. Understand. Okay, so that's a good time to I think segue, because I think I'm really interested in Bitcoin, that so much so that I might have to go into that rabbit hole as you were speaking on. And
yeah,
in order for me to separate from that rabbit hole right now, I want to know, what are you doing to separate from the rabbit hole that you learned so much about? And already I can see why you're so invested in this knowledge and such, and this trade. What do you do when you're not following Bitcoin or crypto? What do you do for fun? How do you escape that?
that's a good question, man. I have on the personal side, I got a 7.5-month-old daughter. So that has kind of been.
Congratulations, she's
Thank you,
beautiful.
man. So that's been taking a lot of my time, and so a lot of my free time. But I would say outside of that, or even before that, you know, me and my wife love to travel. So traveling is I think travel is education.
Yeah.
So traveling is very, very important. Like we even, we had a daughter travel internationally when she was like 3 months. So we trying to instill that in her really early. In fact, we were supposed to be out of town this week, to Africa. So obviously got canceled because of COVID. So love traveling,
Yeah.
love sports, following sports,
Yeah.
love, but to segue into like what your organization is about, I love to read too.
Yeah.
Love reading books. Love
Yeah.
reading books. Both reading it, but also listening to audiobooks and somewhat related podcasts. I'm heavy into podcasts too.
Yeah. I gotten caught up in stories altogether, like hearing people's stories, personal stories, autobiographies.
Yep.
But I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks because where I'm used to traveling. Let me just close this door. Where I'm used to traveling for work, I've been zoning into my my audiobooks because I still get the joy and benefit of reading and hearing these stories that help me escape, but I'm also getting it on the run.
Of
So
course,
that's been my guilty pleasure of late. And
of course.
I've been packing it in though. I've been definitely getting on my books in, on my reading. All the stories that everybody's talking about, I've been listening, and I enjoy
Yeah,
stories and escapism, and also the like you would have been in Africa. I'm learning about Africa. I'm reading about Africa. I can
of
smell it,
course.
when I'm driving and I'm
Yeah,
hearing about it. So that's my form of you know what I mean, travel and all those things. And
love it.
it's good to know that you're actually doing those things and making tracks out there too. So what books are you into that help you do that?
Sure, sure. I mean, so I love a lot of. I wish I was more adventurous in the sense of like digging into fiction. But I dig into like a lot of like nonfiction. Obviously, like I'm a business guy,
Hmm.
so I read a lot of different business books. Some are like, I would say boring uh tips books, right? Advice type of books, like helping you kind of optimize strategy, optimize how you work, all that kind of stuff. But also, my favorites are actually just like hearing stories about how either companies got created or how entrepreneurs got to where they're at. So that's kind of what I've been digging into mostly. I would say since this COVID thing started, I actually decided to like put a pause on all that. I wanted to kind of read more books that are either spiritual or history based,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing like as of the last, I would say, 6 weeks or so.
That's important because you're right. With the COVID situation, it's definitely necessary to us to find other forms of centering and gravity. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because you lose your mind out here, and a lot of people we know, a lot of family and friends are definitely experiencing a lot of trauma.
Of course.
And
Of
I
course.
think the books that we read and all that now, I think our selections are changing, and I think it's being we're trying to find these things in every source that we can hold on to.
Of
Books are
course.
a great way, I think, to help us find those forces, those things that help us balance. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
course. Of course.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I definitely do like business books. I actually had a book, a good book. It was about women in business and the top entrepreneurs and their stories. The woman who was the CFO of Facebook,
Sheryl Sandberg.
yeah, she was
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah.
She's written
Nice.
parts of that. There's a lot of great stories of women and diversity and those type of subject matter in business.
Yeah, one of my favorite books actually that's around diversity in business and entrepreneurship
Hmm.
was a book I read when I was in college and really inspired me. It's a there's a brother, well, he passed, but his name is Reginald F. Lewis.
Okay.
Basically, he wrote a book called "Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun."
Okay.
That was the title of the book,
Yeah.
and the reason why he wrote that is because when he was growing up, he was reading about business deals and businesses,
Hmm.
and all of them had were about white dudes. And he asked his mom, like, "Why do white guys have the fun? That looks like fun." And he grew up to like, he came from the inner city in Baltimore. Some way hustled his way to Harvard Law School, and then became in the '80s was actually the first African American to do $1 billion private equity deal, where he bought a huge business for over $1 billion.
Wow.
And like, yeah, just following his story was super inspiring, and just it kind of all sparked from like asking the question like, why? It's almost like, why not me? Like, just because I don't look like what people think is successful, I could be successful as well.
It's funny that you said that because I met a gentleman. I can't really remember his name either, but I
Right,
what
that's
what
fine.
he told me was he was one of the few black men in tech, and he went to Harvard, and he struggled with identity, and he struggled with his position and finding his footing because a lot of
Yeah,
people didn't want to take him seriously in that space, and he was business
sure.
minded, and he was also a tech oriented person. So what he decided to do was he went away and lived in, I think it was either Japan
Oh, wow.
or China, but
Okay.
he moved away and totally went grassroots, started everything from the ground up in those places. And
Hmm.
although he was the only one of his kind there, he was finding more of his own voice outside of
Wow.
the normal economy or the normal industries that we would
You,
see.
you you know what I would say though? It's interesting because I've traveled internationally. I traveled for work internationally. I even worked at international companies. And one interesting thing about being an American Black person,
Hmm.
when you leave the U.S., especially when you go far like Europe, Asia, Africa, you actually are American first before you're Black in
I
some weird
thought
way.
so.
Yeah.
I
So
get it.
I
I
think
get it.
that sounds like that's what he benefited from. Like people looked at him like you're American and then you're Black. And it's unfortunate that you have to play that game, but I think that's what happened with him. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
No, he made it, and he's like, he said even with his LinkedIn profile, he made it. He took down his profile picture and just let his credits and his work speak for itself, his merit.
It's crazy.
And he was getting hits, he was getting offers. He said his requests and invitations shot up the minute he took his own picture off because of
Sad.
the work he was doing was phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how that would be in tech because I'm dabbling and I'm learning, but I can imagine how it is if that's the way minorities are seen in general in business and other regular industries. How much more so are we affected in those spaces that don't have much representation?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's the same story. I mean, I worked on Wall Street, same story. I got friends that are like trying to reach the upper echelon of medicine, same story. Unfortunately, like whenever things are competitive and non-athletic,
Mm-hmm.
they don't look for us, right?
Wow.
And so we kind of always have to work harder to kind of climb up.
Yes.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. I don't have an answer for that other than like we got to grind and try to help other people that are behind us that are trying to get there. And hopefully for our kids, it's not going to be the case.
Absolutely not. And
Yeah.
that's why it's important to share these stories, you know what I'm saying? Like our stories and the stories what we're reading and things that motivate us.
Yeah.
Because we have to dig deep in order to do what most people are doing effortlessly.
Yeah. 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 That's a great way to put it. Great way to put it.
I mean, no, that's why this is important. You said you want to look at more faith-based books or things like that.
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, it's funny, man. Like all I obviously, you and I, we have grew up in faith as well, and as me as an adult, I would say most of my focus has been kind of around like um excelling, like commercially, if you will, like
Hmm.
doing well at school, doing well in my career, kind of focus on that. And yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, I don't really know how to. I don't. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could look at this whole COVID thing, but I think and obviously most of it's negative, but I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it's. I think we've moved as the world's become modern. I think we have a lot of we lean on our own understanding a lot, like
Yeah.
science, business, whatever. Like we're gonna figure it out. We could fix it, and that's what's gonna happen with this eventually. But just the way it hit, man, is like on some biblical type of stuff, man.
Biblical proportions,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
Apocalyptic.
yeah, yeah, and so it's just interesting. You just gotta like, and also like on the other hand, like I think it's very, very important to have control of mind. Like just because like we stuck inside from we're stuck inside. That's really stuck like so. All you could do is control your mind. You can't just go out and do something. You can't go out and make this virus go away or what have you. You can't make the economy just go back. So you got to control how you react. And so yeah, I mean, I kind of started been digging into like things like meditation and mindset type of things, Buddhism type of things. So I got like actually have it right here. Like
So what's the cover?
this is a basic 101. Like what
Yeah.
like, I know obviously how we grew up
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
faith
yeah.
that's
No,
completely
listen.
different. And
Yeah,
this is
no.
like so I was like yo, I don't know anything about this, but like I know I hear meditation is right. I hear think about like just kind of like setting your mind to um be present, right? And
Yes.
like Buddhism is kind of like the foundation of a lot of that stuff. So I
It's a
just like, you know
powerful
what? Let
story.
me pick up a book and read about this and understand it. And I think obviously I'm that's like I showed you, it's a one-on-one book, so I'm not an expert at all. But I learned a lot. I learned that actually Buddhism is congruent. It's like I think people look at it like, oh, it doesn't work with any other faith, but actually Buddhism is built in a way that like you could practice Buddhism and be uh, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever, Hindu, whatever, right? And that's one of the coolest things I got from that book.
Let me say this.
School me, please.
No, no, no. I joke, but they say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, the first step.
Yes,
And that 101 is not a minimal feat just because it's the basic level. It's the first step to your path. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And the first step to your path started with other steps and other places and other faiths and other experiences you had. So each step you take, each subject you pick apart is a new step into the right direction.
right,
So
right,
taking that right there, that Buddhism, you can now compare it to what you know, what you've experienced, what you've been taught,
of
and
course,
build your own trajectory as to what you find grounds you and what propels you as well,
of course, of
because
course,
the balance is not just sitting still and grounding and not being actively growing.
right,
It's both. It's being
right,
still, growing, and then knowing when to move forward to the next phase,
of course.
and not so much knowing but so much letting your growth exist.
Yes, I love that. I
So
love that.
that is all what you're doing now in all the
Hmm.
phases that you've seen and experienced in your career and what you're teaching others. Now you're taking time for yourself to plant more uh seeds, but you're also learning to now sprout. I think
Exactly.
in my assessment of you in that subject that you just picked up, that book right there says it all. Like that's
No, I
growth,
appreciate
bro.
that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
powerful.
So yeah, we'll see, man. I actually downloaded one of the meditation apps, like Headspace, and I
Yeah.
was like, all right, let me see what this is about. But I think obviously, I think there are use cases for it right now because obviously what everybody's going through and trying to make sure that your mind is strong.
Yeah.
But also, if I look at my goals, like the limits are my mind, right? And
Yep.
my discipline, my focus, right?
Mhm.
So this also has other attributes. So we'll see, man. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm digging into, and some other religious books that I picked up as well. Like so, we that was like that first week where we were working and trying to take care of her. And my
Mhm.
wife and I were like, yo, we need to go get books for her, some toys. Like we need to get her, like during conference calls, she needs to be like entertained. And so we right before like they shut the whole world down for real, like we went to Barnes and Nobles and just like did like a whole
Oh, you were lucky. You
shopping
got
spree,
in
whatever.
early. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a few things, man, but I picked up a few other things as well.
You keep watching the next few segments. I'm gonna interview a friend of mine, two friends that I know just wrote books,
Oh,
and
what?
yeah, some powerful things
Yes,
coming out of those two. And I'm gonna do a review on this as well with them, if
I
they
love
accept
it.
my challenge.
Love it. I love it. I love
No,
it.
but no, you can never have too much books. I know you said you read too much, and you can't do that unless I mean, yeah, you can physically be caught up in that, but there's so much that we don't have enough of, and I think
Right, right.
there's so much
Yeah, I
things
mean,
that.
I think there's a balance. I mean, I think you can learn a lot. But the type of books I was reading, I think I needed to make sure that I apply a lot of what I
Ah,
learned as
that's
well.
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. So
There's never too much, but it's like, what do you do with it after you've taken it on? Now, how do you apply it? And I think that's a good thing too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm doing that. I got this other book that's just pretty interesting too. Actually called, it's not spiritual. It's called God in the Quran, right?
Okay.
So it's actually a book written by an Episcopal priest,
Yeah.
Christian, but he's analyzing the
The
Quran and
Quran.
kind of connecting the Bible and the Quran together.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm digging into that. He's like reading he basically is breaking down how the Quran and the Bible are so connected. It's like one of the same, right?
Yeah.
Twins.
Yeah.
But obviously, so he's like looking at Adam and Eve and how the Quran talks about it versus the Bible and whatever. And that's
Yep.
kind of it. So yeah, I'm kind of just digging into that, man. But
this is rich. This is this is Jules right here. This is
I
Jules.
appreciate that.
That's like, and if they want to know more, that's where you come in. So I'm gonna have them follow you. I'm gonna have people look you up, and if there are any questions, you're definitely available on many stages and many platforms. You also mentioned you had an app as well.
Yep. It's called Coin Gamma. It's the same name as my podcast,
Yep.
Coin Gamma. So you Bitcoin without the BIT, and then Gamma GAMMA.
All right.
Yeah.
And
So it's only on the App Store right now, Apple. But
okay.
I'm gonna bring it to Android.
Yeah, bring it for me. Bring it to my phone, man. I am that Android right there.
Nah, I respect it. Android, man. Like I told you, man, I'm into traveling, so Android is the world.
Yeah.
Like, the world is on Android, so Android is where it's at.
All right. And so we're looking for that app on Android. We're looking at you on Instagram. Can you shout out your Instagram?
Yeah, so it's Fritz Chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little play on my name. My name is Fritz Charles, and I'm into Bitcoin and blockchain. So Fritz Chain, FRITZ Chain. It's the same thing on Twitter. So Fritz Chain on IG and Twitter. Fritz Charles on LinkedIn. But IG is probably where you could hit me up. So hit me up, DM me, add me, ask me questions about, we didn't really get into this market. I'm happy to talk about what I think about what's going on in the economy right now, what I think there's some good, interesting investments.
Yeah.
Talk about Bitcoin. You want to talk about meditation? If you got tips for me, throw them at me.
We will. We'll talk. We'll chop it up.
You want to talk about Africa? I'd love to talk about Africa.
Let's do it.
Obviously, let's do it. Yeah. So I got a lot of different interests.
We don't want to give them too much. You got to leave space for part 2.
Of course.
No, but I do appreciate you taking the time out and like just breaking all that down. And it's so much, so much that we could exchange with each other. And I'm glad we are doing this. I wish you much success. I salute you and all your endeavors and your family, and I wish them health, wealth, prosperity in all forms. And I hope people continue to follow you on all those platforms, follow your podcast. I hope you find what you look for in those books, and hopefully we continue to exchange that as well. And I'll recommend you things that I've discovered and found for myself.
I would love that, man. I would love that.
And to anyone else out there who is just tuning in and just found out about this amazing world of cryptocurrency, continue to follow Coin Gamma. And for anyone else out there and everyone else out there who's also looking at crypto and is also reading a lot of amazing books, feel free to follow us at Ever After Foundation. We have a website. We've gotten a YouTube. We have a Facebook. We have a Twitter. We have even a Pinterest, believe it or not.
That's what's up.
And our webpage is everafterfound.org. Continue to follow us and see the amazing books and stories that people are sharing with us, and hopefully you share yours as well with each other. This has been another challenge completed. I salute you. You have now become an ever after challenger in completing the open book, open mind challenge with me tonight, and I appreciate you for doing that.
I appreciate you offering the opportunity, man. This is great.
Absolutely.
The Ever After Foundation. Ever After Foundation. Giving books to kids in every single nation. You don't have to fret, shorty. You can take some and share it with your friends for their elevation. Education is the key.